London with Vince Ugarow, who is a director at Hilson Moran here in London. And he's responsible for design teams on high-profile projects where it's building systems and environment, right? And I guess that's something that isn't often discussed when we talk about tall buildings, is what's going on inside, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously a lot of focus on how buildings look, how they're set in the context of the location, which are clearly very important. But I think what's overlooked is actually that a lot of these buildings do actually house, literally tens of thousands of people. And one of the things we have found is, through our recent work, is that particularly sustainability, energy consumption of buildings of that sort of magnitude is becoming more and more important. Legislation and regulations have driven sort of energy consumption to lower levels. But I think one thing that has been missed is the whole aspect of the internal environmental quality of the buildings. And what I mean by that is, for the occupants, air quality is very important. Natural light, again, is important. Acoustics, all these factors which quite often get missed. I don't think there's enough topic or debate about this. And I think that perhaps the next generation of tall buildings, this should really be addressed. And again, we've all been in sort of hotel rooms at sort of 70th floor, and probably like many people, first thing I want to do is actually open the window, and of course you can't. It's a sealed box, and if the air quality is not up to scratch, then quite frankly, you really want to get out there as soon as you can. And I think it's just a big topic that should be debated and really promoted more in the context of tall building design.
You have been working on two really cutting-edge projects in terms of building systems. One of them is the Gherkin, 30 St. Mary Axe, and the other is 20 Fenchurch Street here in London. These, I guess, are the state-of-the-art in building systems right now. Just take us through and tell us the building systems, describe them in these two buildings.
Well, I think starting off with St. Mary Axe, affectionately known as the Gherkin. I mean, it's interesting that it's over 10 years old now. And yet it still is used as a benchmark in terms of sustainability, energy performance. And in fact, even yesterday evening it was announced that it's going to be the first building to be awarded the Performance Award through the CTBUH for those very credentials. In terms of 20 Fenchurch Street, again, it's interesting from some of the comments that were made earlier today from CBRE in terms of letting agents, that tenants now are demanding far more denser occupation in buildings. And it was interesting that when we started re-looking at the concept design of 20 Fenchurch Street, this was certainly something that was a key topic, and it actually resulted in more lifts being put in. We also increased ventilation rates for that building, really to look at occupancies of 1 per 8 square metres. And I think that's partly been a real success story to the letting of the building, particularly to insurance markets. So yes, those things are important, and certainly they're things that are now being talked about in a lot of other buildings of similar design.
And maybe this is something that's not often thought of, but the building systems and the things that you recommend to mitigate certain conditions can change the design of a building. Is that right?
Absolutely, and of course, very much at the start of the projects, it's not known who the tenants are going to be. So there's this whole thing about trying to make the design as flexible as possible. But of course, it's got to be cost effective and efficient in terms of net to gross areas. And I think this is a real balancing act that, if it's thought about carefully at concept stage, they can all work together to optimise the design of the building. And I think, as I say, 20 Fenchurch Street is a very good example of that.
So when we're talking about intelligent buildings and building systems, heating and air conditioning, airflow, power consumption, water consumption, what else?
That's sort of the start of it. Again, what we're finding is that a lot of building owners and tenants are looking at embracing all of those things you've just said there, but also looking at how buildings are managed, how they're serviced, And one of the areas that's quite interesting is to see if we can integrate all of these different systems onto some form of common platform and common backbone. There is still a lot of collaboration that needs to be done on that front, but a lot of building owners, what they really would like is to be able to predict what the occupants of that building actually needs. And this could be weather dependent, it could be on events that are going on in the building, it could be on flow and movement of people within the building. And if all these together with the BMS systems can be actually put onto one sort of common platform, that's going to be the ultimate sort of challenge. And there are many companies now who are looking at doing that. So yes, I think in the future this is going to be a big area where it could be very successful.
You have mentioned the Gherkin's been up and running for 10 years now. How has the technology changed since then?
I think particularly in terms of if we talk about things like lifting technology, then the advent of destination control. Again, we heard earlier today from Johannes from Coney about some of the technologies of vertical transportation, the way they can predict people flow and movements. I think these things are key, which have evolved quite a long ways for the last 10 years, which means that buildings are more efficient, and I think that's quite an interesting example of over the last 10 years where there's been real step change in the sort of technologies that can help design super tall buildings. We talked earlier about 600 metres plus, and I think that's really what's allowed that to happen.
Well, Vince Ugarow, thank you for dropping by and seeing us in London.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Nice to talk to you.